The quiet retreat. What happens when airlines stop chasing American passengers? Not delay, not disruption, but a retreat, quiet, deliberate, and coordinated. Right now, foreign airlines are pulling out of the US, and barely anyone in Washington is asking why. Take Iceland's Play Airlines. By October, they'll shut down every US route, Boston, Baltimore, Stewart, gone. Years spent building a presence in America, erased in a single decision. At the same time, Air Canada is cutting 5 US routes for winter. Detroit, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, Nashville, Tampa. These aren't weather adjustments, they're strategic cancellations. There are no sanctions, no political disputes, no retaliation. On paper, these look like independent corporate moves. But when major global carriers simultaneously walk away from one of the world's largest travel markets, something deeper is happening. And the message is unmistakable. The US is no longer worth the risk. The coordinated exodus. Play Airlines might be the headline, but they're not the only one leaving. Air Canada is scaling back. WestJet has already pulled routes. Porter and Flair are reducing service. Across the Atlantic, Lufthansa is quietly reducing US capacity. Air France-KLM reports over 2% drop in bookings. These aren't startup carriers. They're national champions, with deep roots in US aviation. And that makes their retreat even more significant. This isn't panic, it's planning. Airlines are methodically reassessing their exposure to the US market, and many are coming to the same conclusion: it's not worth it. The real question isn't why one or two airlines are adjusting, it's why so many are leaving, at the same time. The numbers don't lie. Let's look at the numbers. Canadian bookings into the US haven't declined, they've collapsed. Some markets are seeing year-over-year drops of 70% or more. In the worst cases, that number climbs to 76%. Hundreds of thousands of seats now going unfilled. Air Canada's response? Cut over 300,000 seats from its US schedule. Meanwhile in Europe, data tells a similar story. Lufthansa is reviewing its US routes internally. EU airlines are watching US demand weaken faster than expected. This isn't seasonal, this is structural, and when demand shifts this dramatically, airlines act quickly. They cut, they pivot, they go where margins are better and risks are lower. Right now that's not the United States. Calculated realignment. It's tempting to blame fuel costs or border delays, but that's surface-level thinking. What we're really seeing is calculated realignment. Lufthansa's CEO admitted US demand has plateaued, even though their planes were full in Q1 2025. But despite that load factor, they're cutting capacity across the board. According to OAG data, Canadian carriers alone have already removed more than 320,000 US-bound seats through October 2025. Forward bookings? Down more than 70%. There's no demand to justify the flights, and that's not fear. That's pure business logic. Empty seats kill profits, so routes get cut, period. Economic ripple effects. This silent exit isn't isolated, it's echoing across regional economies. US border cities and tourist zones are taking financial hits. Canadian traffic used to fill their hotels and attractions. With travel down 70%, those dollars have dried up. Meanwhile, the flow in the other direction, still strong. Air France-KLM reports a 2.1% rise in bookings from US travelers heading to Europe. That imbalance creates a lopsided system. Foreign spending goes out, but little comes in. That dynamic weakens local currencies, hurts small businesses near US airports, and squeezes jobs tied to travel. The Great Reallocation. So, where are all these planes going instead? Not to the US, that's clear. WestJet has redirected more than 100 flights to Europe, boosting routes to Dublin and Edinburgh. Air Canada is shifting focus to Canadian and European markets. Star Alliance members like Lufthansa are trimming long-haul US capacity by as much as 15%, reallocating aircraft to more stable regions. Even airlines from the Middle East and Asia are jumping into the vacuum. They're not just filling gaps, they're expanding aggressively. And they're doing it while US connectivity quietly withers. This isn't just route shuffling, it's a strategic reshuffle of the global aviation board. Ghost terminals. Mid-sized US airports are turning into ghost terminals. Stewart, Cleveland, Tampa, entire international gates are shutting down for months. Carriers are not only canceling routes, they're ending partnerships, walking away from terminals they once called strategic. Take Stewart Airport. Iceland's Play Airlines was its only international link. With Play's exit, the last transatlantic connection vanishes. And it's not just about inconvenience. No international flights means no international spending, no hotel taxes, no jobs at the airport, no revenue for the local economy. And once global carriers leave a city, they don't return easily. local devastation. Border cities like Buffalo, Detroit, and Seattle, places where Canadian traffic once sustained tourism, are seeing sharp revenue drops. Hotels report double-digit losses. Retail in airport zones has fallen 12% year over year. Fewer flights mean fewer travelers. That hits restaurants, rental car companies, and tourism taxes. And it weakens the US dollar in regions where foreign visitors used to drive spending. Airport operators, who invested in international terminals expecting long-term partnerships, are now holding the bag. Expansions built to accommodate foreign carriers are sitting half empty. And this is just the beginning. The one-way street. Americans are still flying out. In fact, bookings on Delta and United for transatlantic summer 2025 are up. But it's a one-way street. Foreign carriers are scaling back. US carriers are still pushing outbound. That's a dangerous imbalance. Healthy aviation ecosystems require mutual flow, inbound and outbound. Without that balance, the system cracks. And that's exactly what's happening. Worse, few Americans even realize what's happening. The gates may still look full, but they're missing something crucial, the return leg. Foreign carriers are pulling routes, and that means money, connections, and influence are also pulling away. The data confirms it. Government data confirms it. Overseas visitors to the US dropped nearly 12% in March 2025. Flights from Europe fell 17%. That's not a blip. That's sustained withdrawal. And US airlines are already reacting. American Airlines has slashed major transatlantic routes. New York to Paris, Dallas to Frankfurt, Philadelphia to Zurich. Not fringe connections. These were core parts of their network. Even Delta and United have held off on giving full-year guidance. Why? Because they don't know how deep this will go. That hesitation speaks volumes. No political solution. What makes this so unique is that no one is forcing it. There's no FAA order, no political ban, no diplomatic fallout. These are internal business decisions, purely bottom-line calls. We've seen this kind of exit before. In 2024, US carriers stopped flying to Israel, not because they were banned, but because they chose to avoid the risk. Now that same calculation is being applied to the United States. Only this time, it's foreign airlines doing the pulling. And here's the real problem. If it's not a political issue, there's no political solution. You can't negotiate with market logic, there's no policy to reverse a boardroom retreat. Shrinking on the global map, this isn't just a dip in travel, it's a shrinking of the US on the global map. Airlines connect more than passengers. They connect economies, students, investors, diplomats. When those links weaken, so does the country's footprint abroad. At the same time, others are stepping in. Emirates, Qatar Airways, Turkish Airlines, they're all growing fast. They're picking up displaced demand, building routes across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. They're doing it while US connectivity fades. Turkish Airlines is expanding both its US network and Europe-Asia services, removing US travelers from the global equation. Chinese carriers like China Southern and Hainan, they're rebuilding, not toward the US but across Southeast Asia and BRICS-aligned markets. The US isn't just losing flights, it's losing its hub status. And once those air bridges disappear, restoring them could take a decade. The final question. So here's where we are. Foreign airlines aren't being pushed out, they're backing away on their own, quietly, strategically, consistently. Multiple international carriers are cutting US routes. And they're not waiting for demand to return. They're shifting resources toward regions they view as more stable, more profitable, and frankly, more worth the effort. That's not just a travel trend, that's a global signal. Because when major companies start exiting quietly, it usually means they've seen something the rest of the world hasn't acknowledged yet. So here's the final question. If airlines are the first to pull out, who's next? With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.